Welcome to this webinar. My name is Håvard Olsen, and I'm the Chief Delivery Officer of boost.ai. That means that my focus is on making sure customers are happy and that they get good value from our product and services. So, therefore, I'm excited to have two experts from Forrester joining me today to walk us through a total economic impact study that we have commissioned. The study looks at how an enterprise organization, by using the boost.ai platform, was able to benefit from a 293% return on investment. My guests today are Will McKeon-White, who's an infrastructure and operation analyst at Forrester, and T Formula, a TEI consultant and the author of the report that we're going to discuss today. So they will be diving into the finding in more detail shortly, but before I hand things over to them, I'd first like to give a brief introduction of boost.ai. I think it's fair to say that how people are communicating with large organizations has changed drastically over the last 5 to 10 years. As an example, many Nordic banks are now reporting self-service rates above 95%. At boost.ai, we believe that customer engagement will continue to change and that conversational AI will be one of the technological drivers behind this. Not necessarily by fully replacing human interaction, but by supporting human agents and other technologies to create good customer experiences. And personally, I think that a common misconception is that virtual agents will stand in the way of good user experience, sort of by preventing customers from talking to a human agent. At boost.ai, we believe in the opposite. We believe that the real power of conversational AI is exploited when technology is part of a wider digital strategy. And I think the key is to find the right balance between automation and customer experience. And through understanding which use cases are well suited for virtual agents, we can then free up time for the human agent to handle use cases that are perhaps better suited for human support, while at the same time shortening queues, increasing availability and efficiency, and also decreasing costs for our customers and help improving their CSAT scores. And this is not just our belief, because according to Accenture, 56% of companies say that conversational AI is driving disruption in their industry. And Gartner states that 40% of all enterprises will have conversational AI by 2023. And according to Capgemini, certain industries are experiencing a 20% decrease in costs due to conversational AI. And to be fair, these type of predictions are nothing new, and honestly, we've seen them for a while, haven't we? What I think makes boost.ai special is that we've actually already realized these predictions, and for quite some time we've delivered value in production. Over the last 5 years, we've built more than 550 virtual agents for more than 400 organizations, and throughout that process, helped them automate more than 60 million customer inquiries. And 85% of these organizations actually achieved return on an investment already within the first 3 months in production. And only 2.6% of them stopped using our technology, whereof 0 of them stopped to start using a competitor. And the mind-blowing 94% say that they're highly likely to recommend boost.ai to other organizations. And I think we've achieved this through developing a no-code platform that enables the customers to automate at scale with low dependency on external resources or developers. And when I say automate at scale, I mean the ability to cope with a wide range of questions across many different topics with varying level of complexity. And I think this is absolutely crucial for enterprise organizations to succeed with conversational AI. And I would say that our focus has not been on what kind of features do we have in our platform, what kind of features don't we have, but rather on what kind of value can we bring to our customers, and what kind of challenges can we help them solve, and perhaps most importantly, how can we use the technology to help them succeed. And I would say that all customers have different needs, and quite frankly, there is no single blueprint for what success looks like. But still, if we are to generalize it, we see that customers typically want to, first of all, improve customer satisfaction. They want to automate inquiries, and they want to drive growth through upsales or through generating pipeline. And they want to do all of this with a low total cost of ownership. So very simply put, you can argue that there's a value in every conversation handled by the virtual agent. Either because the conversation is automated, because it has improved the customer experience, because it has produced upsell opportunities, or ideally, a combination of these three pillars of success. And then when you multiply the value with the number of inquiries, you simply get the total value of contribution from conversational AI. And this leads me nicely into Will's presentation about critical success factors in conversational AI, before T will present the total economic impact study, which is a breakdown of how the organization profiled in the report was able to see such a great ROI. So now I'll hand it over to Will and T, who will break down the report for you in more detail.
Alrighty, there we go. Hi folks, my name is Will McKeon-White. I'm an analyst at Forrester Research, as Poval said. And before we get into the real meat of all of this, why we're here today, to look at the numbers of some of the benefits of the TEI, I wanted to quickly introduce some additional numbers, if you will, around what is so critical about now. Why should you be adopting one of these solutions today, and what does it mean for your organization, and how do you actually succeed in this initiative to make sure that you're actually useful to your end users? So to start off with, brought a little bit of additional data to hopefully reinforce some of the points that Hoval brought up originally. But why should you be adopting a chatbot or a virtual agent today? And to do this, we'll be taking a quick look at what is the state of IT support today. And you'll see why in just a second. But quite simply, the reason why you need to be adopting one of these solutions is people need self-service mechanisms. It won't necessarily be for everything here that you need to do with your end users. So in certain cases, like fixing a broken device isn't necessarily the best suited to a virtual agent or to a chatbot type conversation. But for things like password reset, application provisioning, getting educational support, these are all problems that are well suited to reducing the amount of time it takes for individuals to get this support and to improving that experience overall. Because while employees have actually fairly positive perception of their service desk and of the people who work there, with 73% saying that they actually feel satisfied with the service desk and 64% saying they actually feel adequately supported with the service desk experience, this isn't the whole story. 64% of employees say they avoid the service desk, and 65% say they are living with issues their service desk can't fix. And what is potentially even more frightening about this data is that all of these numbers have increased over the past year. So employees need these additional mechanisms in order to get support, in order to get resolution to their problems. And it's really not the humans' fault. It just so happens to be that the humans are overwhelmed. And for doing the simple things like a password reset, like access provisioning, like reserving or changing a reservation at a restaurant, the humans do not simply have enough time in order to meet user expectations adequately. So you need virtual agents and chatbots to help better meet these customer expectations. And the results that people see are fairly phenomenal. We actually have this chart. This data is a little bit weird because it came out during March of 2020, which had some obvious external factors which caused the surge in usage. But what we saw over this surge in usage and after one of these solutions demonstrated that they were useful was that humans kept using them. About 64% of problems coming into the service desk were automatically resolved by a virtual agent here. And not only that, but the virtual agent was actually able to help meet the surge in demand during the early onset of the pandemic. So, overall results, very large complex organization, a large semiconductor manufacturer is able to automate about 55% of all of their inbound requests using a chatbot for employee-facing functions here. It's also worth noting they managed to acquire and integrate another company without expanding out the size of their service desk. So not only does it help with scale, but it helps with velocity as well as eventually meeting those user expectations. And another large IT services org does the work of about 35 full-time employees using a chatbot and automation combination. So in pathing out this better experience for your end users to actually meet those user expectations that, quite frankly, most organizations are not meeting today, whether it's in IT, whether it's in customer success and support, whatever function it is, if it is interacting with a large number of end users, chances are it ultimately is not able to meet those expectations. So there's two paths. There's improving and accelerating the support experience and avoiding the need for support entirely. Today, we'll be leaning a little bit more into improving and accelerating that support experience, or that top portion of this equation. So we've established the need for a chatbot. There's a fundamental break in how things are working today. There needs to be remediation. Chatbots and virtual agents are one of those mechanisms. So how do you actually make this successful, and how do you scale effectively with this solution? To take a quick step back and just to set up some of the language I'm going to be using in a second, a chatbot, or even a virtual agent in this case, I tend to use chatbot because it's what a lot of end users anticipate these solutions are, and because it allows me to do this little pun here. A chatbot is a two-part application. There's the chat component and there's the bot component. If these aren't working in sync, then your application is fundamentally lacking, or fundamentally broken, more accurately. Because if it can't understand what somebody needs to do, though it can do the thing, it can't execute on that user's request. If it knows what somebody is asking but can't make good on that request, chances are you are ultimately not able to meet that user request as well. So if you do not have these two components working together, you ultimately are not effective as a solution. And this potentially doubles the development effort that needs to go into each one of these things, because not only are you building out workflow, but you're building out language and understanding and all these integrations that are required in order to make everything go smoothly. So your objective to make this useful as an overall objective, a point, if you will, focal point, North Star of the project, is to not only make it useful to end users, but to minimize the amount of effort that it takes to do any of these things, because there's a massive amount of work that has to go into building and developing and maintaining a virtual agent or a chatbot. They scale exponentially in work, and you will not be able to keep up with a small team. So, this is what's required to prove your solution's usefulness. Because if you are not able to make these components work in sync, if you're not able to meet those user expectations, it will ultimately fail. And we've unfortunately seen this fail in production as well as succeed. And in this case of this success, the really important bits of the graphic that I showed earlier are the beginning and the end. Because what happened from the beginning to the end was, at the beginning it was handling about 25%, at the end it was handling over 50% of inbound requests, and it didn't necessarily change that much in terms of the language or functionality. What happened was more end users realized they can use this thing to actually help them. Because if your solution is not ultimately helping your end users, people will avoid it. So lack of immediate success or lack of immediate usefulness will directly result in that failed project. We actually had the misfortune to talk with a healthcare organization. They were trying their best in the development of this chatbot offering, but they spent 6 months ultimately on a failed initiative because they had to pull it out of production due to the fact it had a very low intent recognition score. So the language component of that equation was not working effectively. So, to give some quick recommendations, did want to outline how you can scale more effectively, overall focus on reducing each task's development time, use what is pre-made as much as possible, reduce ongoing maintenance, identify fast common requests, provide a new front end to make sure you centralize all interactions in one area, and make sure you connect in with all data sources. But that's not all. This is really important for scaling in particular, and want you to be able to have this as a takeaway. But there's also additional considerations like making sure you actually integrate in human support to this chatbot pipeline. Because if your solution is ultimately preventing people from getting support, they will abandon it. So every single interaction with this solution needs to result in an end user getting results or support or resolution faster than they would be able to interacting with any other mechanism. This, in part, means you should be integrating in with humans as well, because if the chat solution does not understand what the user's request is or it isn't able to resolve it yet, throw it off to a human. Human can resolve it. You can use that data to train it on an ongoing basis. This is one of the most effective ways forward that we see for the market. Additionally, one of the bad habits we've seen as part of the market is very often implementers will be very vague in what their solution can do, or ideally, it can do everything, which improperly sets expectations. Because if you believe it can do everything, or if you're not telling people what it can do, people will assume it'll be able to help them with their problem. If it can't yet, which is a natural function of how these things are developed and grow over time, you need to be able to tell them, or at the very least, you need to be able to tell them what it can do, so that they can then go and get that support from a human as they would otherwise need. However, if they're here for a password reset, status check, learning sort of commonly asked questions, or figuring out an update on a existing policy, excuse me, that's all something that you very likely should be able to do through the virtual agent platform. So, in order to scale effectively, you need to be using these pre-existing assets wherever possible. This includes integration, and what pre-existing asset means is, in addition to the actual workflow that you need in order to go and resolve an issue, you also need to be able to doing training on the solution, helping it understand what is somebody asking. So the intent training, intent development, entity identification, intent being what somebody wants to do, entity being a specific object. So if you say New York City, that is a specific entity, because that means that you are referring to the specific city in New York that is one of the largest metropolises in the United States. If you're doing all of that yourself, this is a very high effort expectation. If you don't have these capabilities out of the box, if you don't have things like integrations pre-built to negotiate to allow you to plug in onto all the systems that you want to actually take data from or take action in, this will ultimately slow your initiative down and slow your time to useful. Similarly, if people are constantly bounced around between different points of help, you ultimately aren't helping them in the way that they want to be helped. People want a central resolution point to all of their problems, and if your chat solution is not that, then they'll go to whatever they know works the best. People will default to the inertia of fastest success. If they know something works, they will not abandon it. If something is proved to be more successful or faster in that resolution, they will ultimately choose that. Keeping everything centralized in a chat window and doing things like actually excerpting knowledge and identifying how this can be done with shorter pieces of text or shorter action commands, that is significantly more effective in retaining that user base. Starting out, make sure you have a somewhat controllable initiative. Pick your top 10 most pressing and repeatable tasks to start with. Password resets are amazing. Any sort of software provisioning on the IT side, any sort of basic reservation or change on the external facing side, those are all very effective uses to start off with. Chances are, if you pick these top 10 most pressing and repeatable tasks and automate them, you'll reduce about 20% of all inbound work. And finally, one thing that a lot of organizations don't necessarily plan on is optimization. These things take time and development and care and feeding. If you do not actually have this built into your development cycle, ultimately you won't be able to make sure they're maintained. You will have ways that language change that you were not expecting. And you'll have things and workflows and platforms that are changing that you ultimately won't be able to accommodate. Knowledge changes all the time. For example, what are our benefits for the current year? If you're not able to update these solutions with that information, ultimately we become out of date and significantly less useful to your end users. But thank you all so much for joining us here today and for my section. But now, the moment you've all been waiting for, here is T to take over to talk more about the TEI of Boost AI, as well as some of the benefits, costs, um, and risks involved with the solution, involved with the implementation of a solution. Over to you, T.
Thank you very much, Will. Good morning, everybody. My name is T. Fomlu. I'm a consultant on the Forrester Total Economic Impact team. Today, I'm going to go over the following topics. I will cover what a TEI study is, provide an executive summary of the Boost AI study, and explain some challenges the customer faced. Next, I will provide results and a financial summary of what we discovered with this study. After that, we will then jointly make room for questions if you have any. Forrester research has shown that over 90% of IT decision makers find value in business case. TEI is a Forrester proprietary methodology with 4 major components: benefits, costs, flexibility, and risk. So the Forrester TEI model goes beyond just total cost of ownership or return on investment models common in the industry. We add risk and flexibility into our model to create a more comprehensive view of an IT business case. TEI is a methodology that we use at Forrester to articulate and justify the value of technology investments. Total economic impact consists of 4 components. 1. Benefits. The added revenue and business benefits and organization experiences. Costs. These are essentially the upfront and ongoing costs of adopting a technology. Flexibility. Here at Forrester, we define it as what helps to incorporate the strategic value of future investments enabled by original investment. And finally, risk. Across all 3 variables I just mentioned, we adjust for riskiness and uncertainty of an investment. Here is a linear methodology of how we go through that process. For this study with Boost AI, we took a multi-step approach. First, we spoke to Forrester internal experts and Boost AI subject matter experts to learn about the value proposition of Boost AI conversational AI platform. Next, we interviewed a Boost AI customer who has been using the solution for over 2 years. From those interviews, we developed a composite organization, created a financial model, and then worked up a case study, which is available on Boost AI's website. We encourage you all to go there and download the entire study so you can adapt to your unique situation. Before we go into more detail about this study, what I'm presenting today and answers I provide to any questions during the interview will be an abridged summary of the study. Forrester Total Economic Impact of Boost AI Conversational AI Platform. More detailed disclosure are included in the full study. Again, like I said, you can go to Boost AI website and see more detail to that. This slide captures the sentiment of customers we interviewed. They talked about the impact of automating inquiries responses. Big picture, the Boost AI study showed the following results. We identified a 3-year present value return on investment of 293%, benefits of $26.7 million, as well as a net present value of $19.9 million. Now let's build a business case. Forrester used a financial service organization with the following characteristics. The organization operated 5 virtual agents supporting 3 million chats in year 1. The number of chats is supported by these virtual agents are growing by 10% annually. These organizations spend $2.4 million in year one to support the Boost AI conversational platform environment. This cost grows at 10% annually to support innovative developments on this platform. Before deploying the Boost AI platform, the interviewee's organization faced these three major categories of challenges. The organization was growing and facing an increasing number of inquiries coming into their customer service departments. They struggled with finding and training enough employees to service these inquiries efficiently. This led to long lead times for responding to inquiries, reducing both customer and employee satisfaction. Dissatisfaction and struggles keeping up with these inquiries led to burnout and high turnover of employees, thus amplifying the problem all over again. The head of innovation at the interviewee's organization explained it best. This was his observation on how deploying Boost AI addressed their key challenge, as you can see in his quote. After onboarding the Boost AI platform, the quantified benefits observed from this organization fell into two pillars: FTE reassignment savings and income uplift. Let me speak to each of these in more detail. Interviewees said that Boost AI helped automate responses to most routine inquiries that were coming into the customer service center. They said the platform came out of the box already configured to address lots of routine inquiries within their industry. Additionally, AI trainers working daily to refine responses and help the platform with machine learning capabilities helped reassign humans to other value-added tasks. The composite organization in this study witnessed 15.7 million in present value savings over 3 years. Secondly, interviewees told Forrester that the employees relieved from dealing with routine inquiries were redirected to other value-adding tasks. These employees were cross-trained for cross-selling of loans, insurance, and other banking duties, resulting in new revenue for the organization. Factoring in margins and productivity risks, Forrester calculated income uplift that resulted from the deployment of Boost AI platform. The study discovered that the composite organization generated an income uplift of 10.9 million over 3 years. On top of these quantified benefits, Forrester also heard about a few other benefits that were not quantified in this study. Though these interviewees didn't quantify these benefits for this study, they insisted they were very important to their organization. For example, improved work quality. Routine questions were handled by virtual agents, relieving humans to handle more complex inquiries with more dedication and less fear of keeping customers in waiting queues. Improved resolution rates. Proactive communication. Using virtual agents, the organization could reach out to customers proactively anytime they interacted with their website. Improve response times. Virtual agents addressing routine inquiries reduce the waiting time for all customers reaching out to the customer service center. 24/7 communication availability. Virtual agents are available 24 hours a day and not limited to business hours. When the organization is completely open, as used to be the case when all inquiries were handled by humans. All of these benefits resulted in improved customer satisfaction. To understand the total economic impact of this investment, Forrester also looked at the cost of deploying and running the platform. We observed two cost categories. The cost of the platform, which was 5.6 million over 3 years, and the internal cost of operating the platform that was incurred by organization over 3 years. The cost generally covered the salary of AI trainers that refine the platform daily to be able to automate increasingly more complex inquiries coming into the customer service center. This cost for this study was 2.6 million, adding up to a total cost of 8.2 million over 3 years. In summary, Forrester's total economic impact methodology showed that the organization witnessed an ROI of 293% and a net present value of 19.9 million. For more detailed explanation of the methodology and how you can adapt it to your organization situation, please go look at the entire study on Boost AI's website.
Thanks for the very interesting presentation, guys. So before we round things off, I reckon we have time for a few questions, starting with you, Will. So we've spoken at length about automation, about how to measure it, and how to calculate the combined value of automation. However, customer experience and CSAT tend to be key focus for our customers, and honestly, it should be a top priority for any organization investing in conversational AI, right? So how do you think organizations should measure the impact of conversational AI on CSAT specifically?
Very good question, and very much agree. If you are not measuring CSAT implications, then you are doing something wrong. And actually, just to start off, what I would recommend doing is making sure you're actually tracking that to begin with, so that you can see if there's a change over time in terms of the overall customer satisfaction. Because usually what users will be thinking of is that they don't necessarily care about the specific components of the journey unless there's something stand out about one in a negative way. But if they're still having an overall success, that will result in either maintaining or ideally improving that customer satisfaction over time. But additional things you can look for include things like drop rate. Have people stopped conversations randomly halfway through resolution that you don't believe they were able to resolve the issue with? Are people coming back to the solution after asking it a question for the first time? Because if people use it once and then abandon it, chances are that's a customer satisfaction problem that might not even necessarily come out as part of the survey. And then finally, asking people questions like, if you had the same problem again, would you go about resolving it in the same way? That helps you get a much better understanding of, was their resolution path successful for them? Because while they could be having a good experience with an individual or an agent who helped remedy the problem for them, if there are specific components of that, this helps you get an opportunity to identify that overall. And then this all rolls up into that customer satisfaction score.
And also for the listener who's actually listening closely to what you say, I think you can recognize that there is a link between customer satisfaction and automation, because you're talking about customer loyalty, right? And if we're able to create good customer experiences, we will also be able to generate customer loyalty, which again will make the users return, improve the automation number. So it's all very closely linked, right?
And the inverse is true as well.
Exactly. So T, how important was Boost AI platform's ability to scale effectively a contributing factor to the profiled organization's return on investment?
Oh, okay. According to the customer I spoke to, if you implement communication AI with a platform lacking the ability to scale up, you will lose about 50 to 70% of the potential value generation through automation. And that's even before considering the impact of customer satisfaction. To understand why, just consider the complexity of a large organization which uses communication AI. Let's say, for example, a bank or a telecommunication, any other kind of organization. For all these examples, the end user will ask a very wide range of questions. To be able to cope with this, you need extremely wide knowledge, coverage, and the ability to integrate to the technical ecosystem of these organizations. So being able to scale is very important for this to work effectively.
Great points. And lastly, before we round things off, Will, if out of everything we discussed today, what would you say should be the number one thing you want the viewers to take away from the webinar when it comes to successfully implementing a virtual agent?
Good question. So, of course, it's pretty apparent after today's call that there's really great opportunity for a return on investment around conversational AI when it's done the right way and with an appropriate solution for your organization. However, we also see there's these kind of solutions that have an impact on the customer experience, and if you're not actively thinking about that in the CX and the overall usability and success of that solution for your customers, then ultimately you're not necessarily thinking about it the right way. And so as a result of that, conversational AI does have to be a strategic IT and really overall digitization investment for the next few years. And I really do want to reinforce, if you haven't already gotten going, you should be already, because you're losing ground whether you know it or not.
Thank you to the both of you, Will and T. And I hope this has given the audience a better understanding of how Boost AI can help enterprise organizations reduce customer service costs while also improving customer satisfaction. And we've focused on the business case from the automation point of view today. However, this is not to neglect customer experience and customer satisfaction. At Boost AI, we don't recommend implementing conversational AI to automate at the expense of customer satisfaction. We believe that the key is to find the right balance between human support and automation to improve both customer experience and efficiency. So thank you all for watching.